We're now 2 games into Minnesota's preseason, and as usual, there's never really much that we can take from these exhibition games, but I do think one thing is becoming more and more obvious. Jaylen Clark needs minutes this season. He needs lots of them, because we're talking about an A-grade defender who simply just makes his team better whenever he's on the floor. That's been the case since he broke into the fringes of the rotation last season, and even in limited minutes with the weirdness of preseason hoops, that's still been the case over these first 2 games. Now we're talking tiny, preseason, unserious sample sizes here, but Minnesota's giving up 117.3 points per 100 possessions defensively in these 2 games, but when Clark is on the floor, that number drops down to 102.3. And those numbers only back up what we're seeing on the film, and what we're seeing is a guy who refuses to let his man get inside the 3-point arc when he's defending the ball. Look at him here and how he mirrors his opponent's movements, how he moves with the same cadence, meaning these defenders behind him can stay in their shell without ever getting into rotation to cover the point of attack. If Clark is breezing through these high drag screens, preventing dribble penetration, and then forcing a pickup point behind the arc, it makes defense easier for those around him. Again, we're working on a small sample size here, but I think we've seen Clark bulk up and level up defensively this season. He feels immovable off the dribble, and from that starting point, we're seeing him kind of branch out defensively. He seems to have turned from an off-ball chaos creator defender to someone who can defend both on and off the ball at a really high level. Scorers don't want to ISO him up here because there's no north-south driving option, but if he does get clipped by a screen, he's shown that he's capable of defending a switch on someone as dangerous as Pascal Siakam, with that strength and low center of gravity to push guys off their spots. In a league where switchability and versatility is so valued, being able to do this is super important for an elite defender. Again, 6'8" Peyton Watson isn't an issue for him off the bounce, even with the help of those high screens. He just makes it impossible to get near the paint, and then we see the off-ball awareness to step over and take a charge. Causing those turnovers and just generally disrupting offenses is how he actually got his minutes last season. It looks like his strength and technique has improved majorly to help his on-ball defense, but that only adds another layer on top of his defense because he's an insanely gifted off-ball defender. He's super smart with his rotations, he's got really quick hands, and he knows when to gamble to force turnovers. So now that we're seeing both the on-ball stuff and that off-ball defense, he's feeling like an inevitable rotation player for this Wolves team. The best defenders in the league can do both. They do the basic things like getting through those screens and nailing the technique when chasing scorers, but they also do those abnormal things that most players can't do. If he's a player who can get over handoff actions, stick with his man as a chaser, come back and get over ball screens, and then know when to veer off his man and use those hands to dig out steals, then he becomes a genuine on and off ball weapon. There's some really great defenders on Minnesota's roster right now, but not even guys like Jaden McDaniels and Rudy Gobert play defense with this same mix of both chaos and order. This is a good example of that dual defensive ability. He's in Mathurin's pocket here, and he's ducking under the handoff action and chasing him off the ball, then he's fronting up to do it again, and then sticking with it to do it another time, and then there's those quick hands to really throw that final handoff out of whack, and again, his teammates have so much less to do here to get a stop. Again, now you've got a guy who can't be kept out of a possession. Denver try and bring him up into the action here, he stonewalls Watson, almost forces a turnover, and even when he slides into that low man off-ball roll, he rotates over and blocks the floater. That's the kind of player who needs to be on the floor as much as possible. If he's off the ball in this low man spot, he's able to make those quick reads and rotations to cause turnovers, which makes him at least a deterrent in the paint, even if he's not a rim protector. And even at that height, he's the kind of player who makes this read before the pass is even made, and that instinct allows him to do things he probably shouldn't be able to do. When you throw in all of those unteachable things he does in the backcourt, knocking balls off legs, flying around for steals, strapping for offensive rebounds, you might have a potential all-defense level player now that he's seemingly taking a step as a legit, switchable, on-ball stopper. I'm not sure Minnesota can keep that kind of thing glued to the bench with Nickeil Alexander-Walker now gone. Now, the only thing stopping him from getting those big minutes is figuring out what he is offensively. We've seen him really operate well out of the corners as a baseline and dunker spot scorer and playmaker, both last season and even more so now in this preseason, and that is going to be a way he can make himself useful offensively. He's that type of player who constantly punishes defenders with this baseline cut if they're ball watching or turning their back on him, and that's probably his biggest strength as an offensive player right now. But obviously in the modern NBA, and especially in the playoffs, he will need to be able to make open shots from deep, especially on a team like Minnesota's, where there's a couple of really high usage on-ball guys who do need shooters around them. When he's next to Anthony Edwards, this shot where the corner defender rotates over to help at the rim is going to be there for him a ton. If he's not in the corner, he can be a screener here, but when two go to Ant, that pick and pop jumper needs to be in his bag. We haven't seen him shooting off Julius Randle's gravity really, but the same applies to him, Naz Reid, Jaden McDaniels, and Mike Conley. He's got to be able to make the shots they create to really allow his defense to get the minutes it deserves. He made over 43% of his low volume threes last season, and that number probably doesn't have to stay that high, but he does have to punish defenses who are going to leave him open to deal with those more dangerous threats within Minnesota's offense. Like he said at Media Day, if he makes over 40% of his threes and defends the best player on the floor, it's going to be really hard to keep Jaylen Clark off the floor. If you like this video, hit subscribe, leave a like, or leave a comment to help grow Howls and Growls, and thanks again for watching.